Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Paranormal Guys Inc. Radio on a special hour of the night. Tonight it's an 11 o'clock show. Normally I do 10 o'clocks, but I have a very special guest coming on tonight with some very important news regarding his research of SKYFISH or rods. And he's a researcher, filmmaker, and his name is Jose ESCAMILLA, and he'll be joining me very soon. But before I do that, just want to say hello and thank you to everyone in the chat room from the Blog Talk Radio Network and the Facebook group, everyone on YouTube that's showing support. Thanks so much. And the new Twitter connections, appreciate you as well. And I placed his website and his trailer in the chat room there for everyone to take a look at in case they're not familiar with rods, but I'm sure most people will be. And it's sort of a controversial topic, which I do believe that they are real, you know, and there was an attempt to explain what they were or what they could be by a particular TV show, which we'll talk about. But before I do that, just want to, again, say thanks to everyone that's listening, and hopefully there won't be any computer issues. My computer's sort of sluggish tonight, but so far it looks good. So what I'll do is I'll bring him in right now, and we'll start the show off. Hello, Jose. Are you there, sir?
Yes, Jason, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you loud and clear. How are you tonight?
Good, good. I'm calling you from my computer phone because my landline is down here.
Yeah, no, I can hear you loud and clear. It sounds great so far, and I'm looking very much forward to speaking with you. And I know you have some major news that you wanted to inform the public of regarding your research. But before we do that, let's just go back a little bit in time for those that might be stumbling upon the whole phenomenon of the rod and the skyfish and may not know exactly what these particular creatures are.
Well, in 1994, I've been working in the film business here in L.A., for like 30 years. And back in '94, we had just finished finishing a film that I was editor on, and I got to score the music. That was my biggest thing, man. All these years I've wanted to score movies. So everything was going good, and then the Northridge earthquake hit. And I get my editing equipment destroyed. I wind up going to Roswell to shake off the cobwebs, man, from the tremors and everything, visit my mom and my sister. And my brother and I were living in Hollywood at that time. So we went back to Roswell and Midway, which is where we grew up in Midway, New Mexico, 9 miles south of Roswell. And it was, I stayed there for a few months. It was now March. This was in January that we did the movie premiere in Santa Fe. So it was now about March 5th, and at that point in time, I had some of my editing equipment that we salvaged. We had moved to Roswell. I decided I was going to stay in Roswell for a while because I hadn't seen my mom in a few years, working out here in the business. So I was putting together a TV commercial for one of the UFO museums where a UFO flies through Roswell, downtown Roswell, and it crash lands in the side of the building at, what was his name, John Price's museum, which was, right there close to the airbase entrance. So it's March 5th, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and my brother and sister called me, and they said, Jose, bring the video camera because there's UFOs out here at Midway, And I didn't think anything of it. I go, yeah, okay, whatever, Because my mom used to do ploys, to get me out to the ranch out there to go eat and everything else. But I'm here in Roswell, my sister's house, so I took my time getting there. And I remember specifically, I was driving down next to the Air Base highways and the access road, and I thought to myself, man, if this is really happening, show me a sign, guys. If you guys are out there, show me that this is real. Well, about that time, a burst of wind hits the truck, and I nearly went off the road. So I go, wow, that's kind of bizarre, So I kind of rushed over there, and man, when I got there, I was looking for big UFOs, flying in and out like Close Encounters, and that's just not what was there. I didn't see anything, so I pulled up in front of the property, and this is off the old 285 highway coming out of Roswell. I pulled out the camera, and I looked in the sky. I didn't see anything. Then my sister pointed out this one object that was straight above, about 12 o'clock high. And I looked, and I said, Becky, that's a weather balloon, okay? Mm-hmm. And just as I said weather balloon, this thing moved from the center of the sky way over to the left, maybe a couple of miles away. And I go, that's not a weather balloon. Then it moved back to where it was. And I go, that's definitely not a weather balloon. At that point in time, I turned on the video camera and started filming this. And with the naked eye, I could see other things flying around. Literally, I saw things way up there that looked like cigar craft that had windows on them. There were some white ones, and there was some black things that were flying around. And the camera filmed for about 16 minutes before the battery ran out. Because, I didn't expect to film UFOs that day, and the camera was not, the batteries were not charged. Right. I went back to the edit bay in Roswell, and I started looking at the footage and saw these multitudes of UFOs. I mean, I'm talking frame by frame. You'd go and some of these were in the fields of video.
Wow.
So it was just really bizarre. And on March 19th, well, first of all, I contacted people in L.A.,
Yes.
hard copy, friends of mine that I work with in the business here, and I said, guys, I got footage of over Roswell, New Mexico, of UFOs in broad daylight. All right, so that was big news, and hard copy was coming out to do a big interview. There was a big thing in the Roswell Daily Record about the Midway sightings, it was called at that time. And on the 19th of March, my sister calls me, and this time it was about 10 in the morning, and she says, they're here again. So this time I was prepared. I had the camera fully charged. And at that time I also had this girlfriend of mine that was with me, and she had a smaller camcorder. She had a newer one, actually, and it filmed at 5,000 frames shutter setting. It was a high shutter setting. Right. So we went out to Midway again. We set up the cameras, and this time we got both cameras set up side by side. Mine was a RCA VHS camera. Hers was a mini DV camcorder, or a high 8 type of thing. So we're filming, and I'm looking through the viewfinder, and I'm seeing these dark things flashing by, and you can hear me. I'm saying that's a bug, that's a bird, that's an insect, that's a bird, that's a bug. Because just looking at these things flying real fast through the viewfinder, I instinctively started thinking they were insects. Okay, that's the first impression you get when you see these things. Mm-hmm. And later that night, we're looking at all the tapes. We filmed about 6 hours worth of video that day. And I'm looking through these, and I'm going, wow, look at that. There's an insect, that's an insect. And you can hear me verbalizing it. But then I see an insect fly by, and I was shooting with the camcorder. The RCA camera I had was a 2,000 shutter setting. That was the highest shutter setting. And I saw an insect fly by close to the lens, and you can see the wings. You can see it's an insect. You can even see the antennae, And you see a bird, and then these things were flashing through that were like, they were streaks. I mean, they were not insects, okay? Because you could see an insect. So if there was anything closer to the lens, it would you would have been able to clearly see that it was an insect. So that's when I started looking at these things differently, and I go, wow, those are something else. And they flew around like snakes in the sky.
Right.
And that's one of the behaviors that we saw of these things. And my girlfriend Karen, she also had in her camera, she had a higher shutter setting. She was able to get even clearer shots of insects and birds and then these things. So that's where it all started, the Rods phenomenon. At first I used to call them flying snakes. We didn't have a name for them. Karen, who was a nurse assistant, she said, those look like rods. And I go, what are rods? She says in Taber's Medical Dictionary, there are these things under the microscope that have cilia, kind of a membrane across the torso on both sides.
Yeah. And
they're cylindrical in shape, and it's a kind of a bacteria, and they call them rods. So that's how the name was born, for the phenomenon.
Very interesting.
And Jason, I have to say something. Early on, at that point in time, I had already been contacted by hard copy. We were going to, on the 27th of March, hard copy was coming. They were going to interview the family, and we were going to be talking about the UFOs over Roswell and Midway, New Mexico, which we have some incredible footage that has yet to be released. I'm going to probably put this out on one of my new films. But I didn't really just blast out that there were rods all over the place. It wasn't until, I believe it was, we started doing camera tests. We filmed into the sun. We did all sorts of different kind of techniques in filming UFOs because we come to find out that UFOs were appearing there every day. And we used to film at the high shutter setting because that would eliminate all the plausible denials that, skeptics and debunkers were going to come out with, especially insects, birds, the planet Venus, anything that flew through the lens of the camera at high speed. We'd be able to slow it down frame by frame using the high shutter setting and clearly see what it is or it isn't, all right? So we did a lot of camera tests before I went public with it. As a matter of fact, I didn't go public with the rod phenomenon until December 20th, I believe it was, for Christmas. At that point in time, I was asking everybody. I went on regular national TV. I think it was CBS or NBC. And I went on and I said, look, everyone that's out there, there's some kind of phenomena that exists among us, and we want to see if there's anything in your backyard or in your skies these things may be appearing all over the place, and just during Christmas Day, set up your camcorder and a 45-degree film up into the sky and see if these things will appear in your areas, you know. And that was December 25th on Christmas Day that I filmed the famous shot of the rods flying over the Roswell State Bank, where the Roswell Daily Record used to be located back in the 40s. And from there on, it started taking off.
Well, I just wanted to say I'm very honored to speak to you. I sort of overlap that because I'm pretty excited to have this conversation, and it's an absolute joy to have you on the show. Something that I've been looking very much into as well as the rod phenomenon. And let me ask you, before all of this happened, what was your beliefs of UFOs and extraterrestrials? Were you a believer or sort of in between?
You know, I'd seen UFOs and experienced phenomena there at Midway since I was a kid. My dad brought us out one time, like in the early 60s, you know. I think it was about 11 or 12 years old, and we saw the fireballs flying over white sands. You could see from our vantage point at Midway. In those days, you could see from our point of view, you could see the mountains way over there, and you could see the white sands in daylight. And one night, he called us out, and there were these giant green-orange things, and they were far away, but they were freaking huge, man. You could see them from our location, and, you know, White Sands is about, I believe it's about 200 miles from us, but these things were that big. You could see them, but they were way over there, okay? To us, they looked like basketball size, you know, at arm's length. That's how big these fireballs were. So, and then, you know, in the 60s, I had a rock and roll band. We were pretty famous back in the 60s, and we toured around with a lot of different bands, rock and roll groups from that era, and we had one major UFO sighting coming out of Carlsbad, New Mexico. This was in '66, where this UFO flew right over us, and it was so close that I jumped up to try to touch it. You know, there's a whole, I've written a whole thing that I'm writing a book called 16 Minutes, you know, which details a lot of my early UFO sightings that I've had and throughout, you know. 16 minutes being the time that the batteries ran out, you know, on that camcorder, the first UFO sighting on March 5th that I filmed. So, you know, I've had UFO sightings and things, and back in the 60s I got a Frisbee. I put a propeller on it, tried to make it fly, you know, cut my finger trying to do that. But I've always had, I've kind of been fascinated with UFOs. I've never been afraid. You know, I've seen a lot of stuff, believe me. It was just that it wasn't until March 5th, 1994, that I filmed what I saw. Up until that time, I could only just give you reports, you know, but that was the first time that I filmed UFOs, and I saw them with the naked eye and filmed them at the same time.
Well, let's start breaking down what you may think and may not think rods or skyfish may be. They're definitely not insects or birds. And there was a show that I mentioned on the intro called Monster Quest that really went out of their way to seem to railroad you. And in my opinion, this seems to be the first time that they've ever tried to do that to somebody. Most of the time, they're quite reasonable when it comes to presenting a story. And why do you think they took the extra effort to sort of do that to you? Do you have your own theory on that? Well,
you know, first of all, they lied to me. You know, at that point in time, I was not doing any TV shows because I'd had an experience with Fox TV. They did a complete one-hour special on the Rods phenomenon, which, granted, it was cool.
Yes.
But wound up they owed me money on that. You know, I never got paid what was due. I kind of I like the way the show. As a matter of fact, the guy that directed that Rods TV special was John Moffat, who's an old friend of mine that, you know, through hard copy. He was one of the.
Right.
He was, as a matter of fact, he's the guy that broke my Midway sighting story, our family, back in '94 on hard copy. John's a good guy, all right? It's just that business-wise, you know, some events happened that I'm not too happy. But aside from that, when Monster Quest came up, I love the History Channel, first of all, Jason, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite channels. They bring out a lot of neat programming and everything else. But just like with everything else, they do watered-down programming, man. They don't present the goods, all right? They're always missing a few points here and there. When Monster Quest approached me, The first time I was approached, this was back in 2006, okay? They sent some guy out that was total wanted to railroad me. I mean, you think Monster Quest railroaded me this time. This guy was, he made it so blatant that he was going to screw me over that I said, you know what, you're not paying me enough, and I just don't want to do this story, forget it. That particular program got canceled at that time, but then in 2007, Monster Quest contacted me again. They had this producer, I'm not going to say his name, but he was the guy that produced the segment, and he was totally playing like he's on my side. He said, Jose, we're going to do you right. The other producers that were working on the original segment, they wanted to make you look like a fool and this kind of stuff. He says, we're going to do right by you. And I said, okay, the only way we're going to do this show is if you present all the evidence, okay? Present the underwater footage of rods. Present the footage of the rods and the shuttle footage. Present the other footage that I have, because I have some footage that was shot on high-speed cams. And also, I told them, I need you to get me the Tiger Woods footage, all right? Right. CBS had shots of a rod that flew through a scene where Tiger Woods was shot at 5,000 frames per second on a high-speed camera, all right? And we're talking real frames per second, high definition, 5,000 frames, not 5,000 shutter setting. There's a big difference. Yeah. These were actual frames and high definition. That Tiger Woods, Woods, when he hit the ball travels at 85 miles an hour, and a rod flies right through the scene, okay, faster than the ball. But you could clearly see it was a rod. It was not an insect, because at 5,000 frames per second, there's no way that you're going to get an insect blur, okay? Right. Anyway, they knew about the footage. They said, we're going to do everything we can to get this stuff. We're going to do it right by you, right? And I said, okay, could I get a script? And they said, oh, we're working the script as we go along, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of suspected that, but by that time I'd already done a contract with them. I wanted to get this done right, okay? Because prior to this show, I had done a show back in 2002, I believe. It was called Proof Positive, okay? Mm-hmm. They deliberately, ignored all the evidence. The director even said, I know rods are nothing but insects, I wanted to pop him in the face, okay? But I had to deal with it, man. I needed some cash in those days. So, you do these shows because they pay you license fees, and that's the only reason. Otherwise, I'd have waited till I get my hands on this Tiger Woods footage, which eventually I'm going to get it, Jason, all right? I'm going to get that footage, and that's going to put the kibosh on all the debunkers, all the insect theory guys, all the other snapper heads that are out there, man. When I get that Tiger Woods footage, it's going to end it. They're going to find out that rods are very real, okay? Monster Quest, here's what they did. They said, okay, we're going to present all your evidence. Well, they did, and if you can see the show on YouTube. Listen carefully how they did this, all right? They did it very cleverly, all right?
I agree.
What they did is they would show the rod coming out of the ocean, okay? They'd show the rod underwater, the rod's entering. They said, probably a fish. That's all they would say. They showed the footage like they promised me, but the narrator said, this could be debris, this could be a fish, okay? They ignored the whole thing, because if they would have done investigation on that shot of the rod coming out of the ocean, okay, that was shot over Rhode Island. No, it was over, what's the name of that place, man? Long Island, okay, Long Island Sound. The camera was set up about 1.5 miles from this buoy, and that's what we used as reference. And when you move the camera over to the right, the rod comes out of the ocean, and it breaks water, okay, but it's about 1.5 miles away. All right, and if Monster Quest would have done what they said they were going to do, they would have spent time looking at that footage. Investigating the footage. Take the footage, dissect it, man. You can see this thing clearly breaking the water, all right? And in real time, the thing comes out of the ocean within a split second, and it breaks water, right? Yeah. But they decided to ignore that, and they just said, this could be an insect. That's all they said, man. And then the shuttle footage. There's definitely rods flying in. There's tons of them in this one footage that I gave them. They said probably debris, and that was the end of that shot. Okay, so this is the way they did the debunking. Now, the clincher was this, and I guarantee you, Jason, if they would have contacted me and said, Jose, we're going to do a rod's camera test. We're going to put a camera, high shutter setting, and then a high-speed camera side by side, and we're going to shoot into the sky and see what we get. I would have said, great. I would have said, number one, do not shoot at night. Okay? The reason being, Jason, anyone that knows anything about camcorders, all right, anytime you shoot at night, you have to put the shutter setting on the camera to the lowest, okay, just to allow enough light, okay, on the regular camcorder. The high-speed camera, with the lights shining, it's no problem because it's a high-speed cam. It's going to catch everything in clarity, all right? But the camcorder at night, everything you're going to see is going to blur. As a matter of fact, if you look closely at the YouTube version of the Monster Quest segment, when the guy walks in front of the camera, he becomes a ghost almost. It's like he's walking, and there's a tracer effect, you know, because the camera is not getting enough light in it to get any clarity. And of course, anything that flies through in the scene is going to look like a freaking rod, man. It's going to be elongated. I knew this back in '94. That's why I created the SKYFISHing protocol. And I've always told people, do not shoot at your normal camera settings. Do not shoot at night, because there's no reference. Always shoot in broad daylight and shoot into the sky. That's where they reside. Okay? So Monster Quest deliberately did that. Okay? Then you've got the guy that says, well, you know, there's two fields in one frame of video. You know, there's an odd and even field, and all it is you've got doubled. You've got an insect that's being doubled by the fields. Well, if that's the case, then everything you would shoot with a camcorder would be doubled. Okay, so they lied to you there too, because what they did is they're talking about shooting in the normal and auto settings. And this is what I keep telling people: don't shoot at regular or normal auto settings. Shoot at the high shutter setting that I've created to eliminate insects, to eliminate birds. Okay, I've got a SKYFISHing protocol that says shoot manually, but do not shoot auto normal. Auto normal is going to give you artifacts. All right, you shoot at the high shutter setting, a bird becomes a bird, an insect becomes an insect, and a rod is a freaking rod. You know, but see, Monster Quest did not explain it. If Monster Quest was going to be honest and had been straight with people, now I don't mind that they're messing with me, trying to debunk me. But what really aggravates me is that the general public, JQ public, that has no clue about camcorder technologies and everything else that goes with it, they bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Oh, rods are nothing but insects. Okay? If Monster Quest was really going to do a straight-up, concise test on the rods, they would have shot it in broad daylight. And I guarantee you they would have gotten different results.
Oh, I completely agree with you. And since then, it seems that if you merely mention the word rod right now, you know, in most cases, people will just look the other way because of that episode. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't mind it. I've been bashed. I've been called a hoaxer. I've been, you know, there's people that send life threats to me. They curse at me. They call me scammer and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? My day of vindication's coming, man. And all those idiots that are out there, and I hope you're listening to me, all you idiots that are out there that buy hook, line, and sinker, you know, that think I'm hoaxing all this stuff, that I've been lying to you, you're going to just eat it, man. You know, egg on your face, you know?
No, I don't believe that you're hoaxing at all, because what about the reports of some rods being, you know, almost a mile long and that kind of thing? I mean, you're not going to have, you know, camera tricks with that kind of thing. It's just unheard of. In fact, I posted a video from the Obama inauguration of what looks like a rod flying in front of the parade. Did you get a chance to see that footage?
Oh, yeah. I saw that live, basically, you know.
Yeah.
And here's a lot of the things that, well, it's a rod, definitely, but here's a lot of the things that people don't get. And Monster Quest did not address this, and I told them, I said, guys, you got to show people how there's depth in the photography here. I mean, right away, people say, oh, it's just an insect close to the lens. Well, if people would realize the way a camera works, anything close to the lens, especially when we have a camera set in infinity, okay, anything that flies close to the lens, it's going to be invisible. It's going to be like a big blob, translucent, because it's not in focus, okay? So people just don't get it. They don't realize what goes on in the workings of a camcorder. You know, and Monster Quest deliberately denied people the truth, man. They lied to you, and I think it's well, it's a shame. What can I say? That's all I can say about it. But, you know, they really PO'd me. Huh?
It's true, but as you said, you know, with your continued research and pushing forward, all that will be erased and forgotten. Let's talk about what the possible, you know, origins of these creatures are. Do you think they're natural to Earth, or were they brought here by a UFO and released into our atmosphere? What's your take on that?
Well, you know, me and my team at that time, back in the 90s, we did a lot of considerations. You know, we found creatures that were from prehistoric times that had the same kind of propulsive system that we thought the rods have. Yeah. You know, they had an undulatory wave fin type of thing, sort of like a cuttlefish and like a squid. You know, that's what we think they have as a propulsion system. And rods don't fly, they swim through the air. That's the big difference, you know. I think it may be a creature that adapted, you know, that's able to travel both through the liquid realities and the air realities, which air is actually liquid. It's just you know, it's not as dense as the oceans. But these things have the abilities of going through the water and coming out of the water effortlessly. And I think if they are a living entity of some kind of a creature, it could be a prehistoric creature or possibly even the ancestors of today's insects, of all things.
Right.
Okay? I mean, there's a creature that there's an entomologist who's the top dog in entomology. He's out of London, and he was on the Monster Quest show. He showed a glider that he made of what he felt was the prehistoric ancestor of today's insects. You know, when I first heard about this guy, I thought the prehistoric ancestor was going to look like a dragonfly or something, right? No, man, it looks like a rod. So maybe that's where these things originated. There's another thing, though. We have them coming into the Earth from space. We have shots of them leaving Earth.
Yes.
There's photography on Mars of rod objects. Okay, there's stuff on the moon of rod objects. Okay, then again, though, on the moon, it's at night, so I don't take that. But, you know, when you got a broad daylight photography on Mars of objects that look like rods, well, you know, here's another thing, too. There's infrared photography and ultraviolet photography taken by the shuttle of rods. You know, they're invisible to reality. So, you know.
Now let me ask you, for their actual structure of their body, would you believe or have a theory of, do you think that they're like a hard exoskeleton in the same way as a shrimp or, you know, a prawn or a crayfish? Or do you think they would have a gelatinous build-up like a jellyfish?
You know, I think it's a little of both.
Right.
In my new film, the remake of my movie UFO: The Greatest Story to Deny, I added some footage that we shot at Midway. These things look like ribbons, you know, like a white ribbon that just slides in and out of the scene. There's no wings, there's no antenna, there's no legs. They don't even have the undulatory wave fin. They're just like a ribbon just flying in out of nowhere and going into nowhere. So we don't know. These things are super fast. You can see them with the naked eye. We found out you could see them with the naked eye. You know, you just have to acknowledge that they exist, and you'll start seeing these things. That's another thing too that Monster Quest did not want to address. I had eyewitness sightings from police people, you know, policemen, aircraft guys, air pilots, that had seen with their naked eye these things. You know, there's an F-14 pilot that said, "You guys are not going to believe this, but I think I just saw a rod." You know, and he's up there flying high in the skies. You know, there's a lot of stuff that they just ignored, but we don't know what these things are. That's the whole thing about the rod phenomenon, is we don't know where they come from. We don't know what they're doing here and why they're here, but we just know that they're here.
Let's also talk about the fact that they're not just in a selected area. They are being seen worldwide, and they vary
all over the
in
world,
size. What's the largest one that's ever been reported? Do you know the actual estimated length?
Well, the one that comes to mind right away is was shot in 1998, I believe. It was during the worst tornado in Oklahoma history, and the helicopter news crew was following the tornado from like 15 miles away, all right? And the funnel was 15 miles away from the chopper cameras, and the chopper is at 3,000 feet above the ground. The front, the cloud cell, the front part that's closest to the chopper is about, I believe they said 10 miles away, okay? Mm-hmm. And out of that cloud comes a rod, and it's a white rod, and it lasts 3 frames of video. Boom, boom, boom. It just comes in and out. It's like a flash, Then, farther towards the funnel, you see a huge rod that goes into the funnel, okay? And then there's a third rod that comes in, but it's real translucent. You can't see it. The rod that goes into the funnel, 15 miles away, that sucker was huge, man. And it only lasted like about 2 or 3 frames, of video. So that meant that thing was traveling thousands of miles per hour, and it was huge. Could have been 100, maybe 200 feet long.
Yeah, and that would not be a bird or an insect either.
No, I don't think birds are used to flying into tornadoes. Plus, skeptics will say, "Oh, that was an insect inside the cockpit." No way, man. All right. And then the other one is, it was close to the camera. The cameras were situated, I believe, outside the chopper. I can't remember, but I believe they were mounted. So any insect or bird that might have flown through the downdraft from the chopper blades, man, that's like 80-mile-an-hour winds, There's no way a bird would have stayed in path. Plus, these rods come out of the cloud and go back in. So that was one of the most amazing ones.
And do you have any knowledge or possible rumor that there actually has been a captured specimen, either dead or alive?
Back in 2001, there was a lady that claimed she had killed one.
Right. And
she was from Michigan, and she lived out in the woods, and she said that this thing was flying around. She said she'd seen this TV show, and it was definitely not an insect. It was, fluttering around her cabin. And she said she brushed it off, as it passed close to her, and she killed this thing. She sent it to us. She sent us the specimen, and she happened to be a nurse, and she had a hermetically sealed thing that she sent the thing to. But it took her 2 weeks before she contacted me because she was afraid of getting ridiculed. Okay,
right.
And she stuck it in the refrigerator. So by that time, this thing had really shriveled up. But she told me it was definitely a rod. When she saw it, it was not an insect or anything else. Well, she sent it to us. And we did a cursory examination of it. Then we took it to the Museum of Natural History here in L.A. Mm-hmm. And we showed it to some of the entomologists and zoologists there, and they didn't know what it is. One guy said it looked like a piece of food. It looked like a gelatinous type of food of some kind, but he just couldn't put it together. He said it was definitely not an insect. And then the Japanese came in, and we gave them a part of the specimen. They took it to Japan after we did a TV special on it, and we never heard back from them. So we have no idea whether it was or not. However, we've had reports over the years of like this guy that lived over in Oregon. He said, his dad had a ranch, and they always used to have a lot of problems with mosquitoes and things with the cattle. Okay, so they put out some antifreeze in this big, huge, small trough, or a pan, whatever. And he says he remembers one day his dad called him. He says, "Look at this thing," and he said it was a rod, and it was in the antifreeze, and it was clearly it had the wave fins and everything else. But his dad threw it away, and this was years ago. All right, so I think personally, because rods do have some kind of a life cycle under the water, I think somewhere in some ocean laboratory somewhere there's probably an unknown jelly plankton. Claimed as an unknown, and it's probably a rod for all we know. It's just that we haven't disseminated enough people out there to look at these things. And when you got Monster Quest shows and programs like that debunking it, people are not going to pay attention. So
you're right. That's a great point.
I shall persevere, man.
Yeah, for sure. And you're doing a great job at it. I fully support, and I know that things are going to change for you. I have a question from the chat room. Somebody, his name is, or her name is Serious Business, Louis. They would like to know if you made any kind of contact with Whitley Strieber at all.
I've known Whitley since the 90s. I mean,
right.
We don't talk regularly, but yeah, I know Whitley. But
yeah, they believe that you can do great things together. And
yeah, Whitley's cool, man.
You could probably
he's
work
had a
on
rough
that as
time.
well. Yeah,
huh?
exactly. Abducted.
He's had a rough time, man. We all have.
Yeah,
Jason,
exactly.
a lot of people don't realize, I'm all over the place, all over the world. I'm well known and all that kind of stuff, but people don't realize, I'm a filmmaker too, and I put a lot into making my movies.
Yeah.
And people get irritated because I charge for my films. I mean, geez, it costs me money to make these,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing if you go to the theater and you watch Avatar, for example. You have to pay to see it,
Absolutely,
Yeah.
And for a lot of my critics out there, guys, I have to make a living too. I'm not a wealthy man. I'm not a multimillionaire. People must think that I'm a millionaire or something because I make these movies. They say, "What are you charging, man? It shows that you're not into it. Your credibility goes down the tubes." And I go, somebody's got to pay for making these. It cost me $280,000 to make Moon Rising last year. People don't realize this. I owe investors. I owe money to people, all right? I put it on YouTube for free for 1 year. What more do they want of me,
Well, that's
and
the thing. In this field, though, it doesn't matter. Sometimes no matter how much you give of yourself, it's still not enough. And that's the unfortunate part of it.
Yeah, but we must persevere. We must go on. And
right.
if I would have made the money off of my movies that I should have, I would have been able by now to buy that Tiger Woods footage. You know how much CBS wants for it? $45,000, man.
Especially for with
$45,000 for a 1 minute clip proves rods are real. Where in the world am I going to get $45,000?
No, you have a great point there, and I wanted to find out if by closely examining rods, have you noticed if they have any intelligence behind them? Because they cannot just be, a random animal, let's say, or a creature of some sort, just fluttering around. Do they exhibit any social behaviors that you can
I have to tell you, we have footage of base jumpers over at the Cave of the Swallows that were taken by Mark Lickley, who at first was skeptical about everything I told him. But, we have a guy that's jumping in, and a rod comes right up to him and then makes a 45-degree angle turn to avoid connecting with him. So that shows intelligence. There's also Fox TV footage of a rod that's flying down. First of all, let me set up the shot. There's a guy that jumps off. Now, there's a thing called terminal velocity, which means that the base jumper is traveling at about 100, maybe 120 miles an hour, okay? That's how fast the body will fall. Well, there's a rod that flies in, and remember, you have to realize the guy is falling at let's say 100 miles an hour. The jumper's falling down, straight down at 100 miles an hour. So is this rod. It's falling down at 100 miles an hour, but at the same time, it's making, it's traveling to the right underneath the base jumper, and it makes a U-turn while still going straight down at 100 miles an hour, and just does a U-turn underneath the base jumper. It's one of the most incredible shots of a rod, And we have some idiot man named Sol who says, "Oh, that's an insect inside the camera canopy." Okay, well, he's lying because if that was an insect, as I said before, it would be invisible. You understand? This rod is right underneath the guy's belly, and it flies in, makes a U-turn, and it's still falling down at 100 miles an hour at the same time. But tell me of an insect that can do that and stay in focus. No way, man. No way, Jose.
I think we should also mention, too, that there's many references in old artwork of things that appear to be, what looks to be a rod or a skyfish. And I know it's kind of connecting the dots, but there's a great possibility that people have been aware of these things for far longer than we'd like to think.
Absolutely. There are rock drawings that we found in Argentina from over 1,000 years ago that have, if you were to draw today, if you were to, on a napkin, draw a rod to someone and say, "This is what a rod looks like," and did a quick drawing, there's carved drawings, rock carvings that are 1,000 years old in Argentina that depict what appear to be rods. Okay? There's another thing, too, Jason. In 1897, over Crawfordsville, Indiana, the townspeople saw for 3 days in a row, they saw this thing that was 30 feet long, and they said it fluttered like a fish. It swam through the air like a fish, but it was 30 feet long. It didn't have a head or a tail, but it had this appendages along the sides. And it was 30 feet long, they said. This was the priest or the preacher or, the whole, all of the townspeople, man, the sheriff, everybody witnessed this thing. They called it a sky monster, okay? 1897, Crawfordsville, Indiana, and I think there is somewhere, as a matter of fact, John Moffat, when we did a TV special with Fox, they covered this little segment, and they showed a drawing from an actual newspaper thing, and guess what? This object looks like a skyfish, like a fish with undulatory wave fins on both sides of the torso, much like a cuttlefish. So, it's just amazing that these things have been around. They can be seen with the naked eye, and now they're being caught in infrared.
That's a great thing to illustrate. And I wanted to find out, do you have an idea or a theory of how these things possibly mate and where they may, spawn their offspring? Would it be in the oceans or water, or do you believe that it's in the atmosphere?
No, I'm glad you brought that out, because there's footage shot by Chief Golden Eagle Standing Elk, okay? He's the chief of the Lakota tribe and of the Star Knowledge Nations, and he was, the way he put it is that he was told by Spirit to go outside and film above the church there at the reservation. So he set up his camera and he filmed there. The unique thing of what he captured in one frame of video, okay, was a series of rods connected end to end to each other. And in other words, it was the longest rod I've ever seen, and it only lasts one frame of video, okay? And he shot it with a XL 2000 camcorder, man, Sony camera, high quality. And this thing, I showed this shot to a biologist, and she says, that looks like an amoeba. It looks like a single-celled animal reproducing itself. Because what it was, it's a rod that's probably about 3 foot long, and then there's a white dot in between it and the next rod that's about 3 foot long, and then another dot, and then the next rod, another dot. It looked like a train of rods connected by white little dots, okay? And this less than one frame of video. It's the most spectacular shot of a rod, and it could be a single-celled animal. They're born the same size as the adults when they're born. So we just don't know, but they're there,
Yeah, they possibly have the ability to clone themselves as well, It might be a way to look at it as well.
And what do they eat? Maybe they eat air plankton, or maybe they eat adrenaline, human adrenaline. They're attracted to jumpers. Oh, as a matter of fact, the promo that I've shown on my new Roswell Rods promo for my new film that I'm going to eventually get done, there's sky jumpers jumping out of airplanes, 10,000 feet, okay? And in there's a shot of the biggest rod ever captured close up to the parachuter. It's the last frame of video, and this, these things were shot at 10,000 feet in the air.
Wow.
So that totally eliminates the insect theory close to the lens, especially when you see them going in the depth of the scene. They're going from one point far away to the next point, away from the camera, not left to right. These things are actually traveling as if you shot an arrow, It's amazing.
Do you think that there's a possibility that you've uncovered something so controversial that that's why there's been a silencing of what these things really are?
I think so, too, because, if they were just insects, I would have put them out the pasture a long time ago, because I am not a liar. I'm a film and video editor, man. I can show you what an insect looks like, all right?
Yeah.
That's why I developed the SkyFishing Protocol. Monster Quest and Proof Positive programs like that, they were just designed to debunk. They're not giving you the truth. Otherwise, why would they make such a big deal and say, oh, we captured a moth, ha, 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 ha. But they did not do it the right way. If they would have done it the right way, they would have done it in broad daylight. That would have given them total different results, you know, and people would have a different conception of what we're dealing with, you know. And when I say dealing with, I have to say this. Whatever these things are, I had a pharmaceutical guy said, you know, Jose, these rods are so fast, their metabolic rate, you know, their energy, it could probably heal every disease known to man. You understand? Because they're traveling so fast, they're burning so much energy, their metabolic rate is just like off the charts. He says, if you ever capture one of these things, pharmaceutical companies are going to be the first knocking at your door, offering you billions, you know, to take that carcass of this thing and turn it into medicines of some kind, you know?
Yeah.
On the other side of the coin, huh?
I was also going to say the other factor, too, is this is an organic propulsion system that would, you know, definitely enhance our space travel ability if we can harvest the method and turn it into something we can use.
Well, I'll tell you something. You know, when Monster Quest did the wind tunnel test, which was ludicrous, they also did another thing to try to see if the rod's propulsion system worked. MIT scientists had already developed a flying thing that works with nanotechnology and has a membrane that flaps these wings. But they actually made a rod object, okay, with two sets of wings. If you were to configure and connect the dots within the two sets of wings, you would find out that they're using the undulatory wave fin technology. And this particular object that they made is something that will fly on the thin atmosphere of Mars.
Yes.
Okay? And, you know, these idiots over at Monster Quest, rather than, I mean, they did a stupid wind test, you know, with a stick, and they had these flats on, they, you know, they blew the wind at the thing, said, well, you know, it's just not aeronautically safe. No, idiots, you know, if you would check that with MIT, and I told them about this, I said, look, there are models, they have working models that when you look at the whole progress of this particular scientific model that they made that flies, it'll fly on Mars. They designed it to fly on Mars. And if these idiots would have done the right kind of connecting the dots, but they weren't on it. They were out to debunk everything. But rather than show the people the real stuff, you know, they eliminated this. But that scientists at MIT developed this thing, man, and it's amazing. It flies.
I'm so glad that we get
to flies.
You know, I'm so glad we get to hear your side of it, because that's what was missing as well. And I have a question. I have two questions, one from the chat room, and I also have a caller that would like to ask you a question. Are you up for a question?
Let's go for it.
Okay, first, the question from the chat room is, do you feel it could be possible that they could be drones or messengers of some sort carrying information to somewhere else? And that's from Kathy, and she's in the chat room here.
Yeah, Kathy, they could be. I mean, we had the Native Americans do a ceremony to find out what these things are. They said that white rods are like our prayers, the dark rods are like our thoughts, the orange, green, and red ones, we don't know what they're about. All right. Then we also checked out the possibility that rods could be the life stream of Mother Earth. You know, the red and white blood cells that are trying to, you know, take care of the damage we're doing to Earth. Maybe they're the corpuscles of Mother Earth, you know. Then again, they could be cosmic creatures. They could be interdimensional. We don't know. I had a guy in Aztec, New Mexico, and I lectured there. He said, I work with the naval intelligence. He says, rods are nothing but these drones that were made by the CIA to spy on people. And I go, okay, you know, throw something on the wall. Tell me what they are. You know, I don't know what they are. Jason, I really don't.
That's a great thing. That keeps it interesting. You know, the mystery is what is driving everyone to figure out what's really going on. And I'm going to bring in the caller now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sasquatch. You have a question for Jose?
Yeah, Jose, ¿cómo está?
Yes. Who's this?
My name is Thomas. Tomas.
Hey, Thomas.
And I took a picture. I've taken a lot of pictures, but I took a picture with a digital camera, and there were what appeared to be rods in the camera, in the picture. And I took this at night in the woods where there was no other light source whatsoever. And they were all streaming in the same direction.
Well, I'd like to see it, you know. You can send it. Can I give him my email address, Jason?
Yes, sure. Okay. Please do.
Yeah. Tom, send it to Jose at tbln.com.
Okay. Also in the photograph was what appeared to be a green orb, a very small one, and I, examined it by changing color, changing the saturation of the photograph. I held the magnifying glass to the monitor and looked it over, and I could not see anything that looked like the body of an insect or wings whatsoever, but this green orb was in the photograph as well. And again, I was taking photographs at night with a flash on a Panasonic digital camera.
Well, we did shoot at night in Mexicali, Mexico, using a strobe with a camera, okay? Because, when you get a digital camera, if you time it with a strobe, just like a regular film camera, you can solidify, frames of whatever's flying about. We've got bats, we've got birds, and we've got rods. So, and this is all coming out. I'm doing Roswell Rods, the movie, man, and I'm going to come out with it. I want to address a couple of things real quick. I know we're not running out of time. But, Tom, send that to me, okay?
I certainly will.
Well, we could definitely go extra time if you would like, Jose. This has been absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, there's no problem about that at all.
Cool, cool. I thought we had to shut off. No, heck yeah, man.
Okay.
I thought we had to shut off in 1 hour, but anyway.
I'll go back and I'll try to extend for another half an hour if you like. See if I can get that.
That's fine.
Okay,
that's fine.
And I won't stay on the phone. I just wanted to ask you what you thought about that, because I couldn't, after analysis, I couldn't find anything that would explain the rods or the orb that I got in the photograph.
Well,
at all. There was nothing.
You said you did get an orb and a rod at the same time?
There was probably about 15 rods in the background. They were over further away towards the tree line, and up close to me was a green orb. And I never saw any of this with my eyes. I didn't see it until I analyzed the photograph. But you can see it in the original photograph plain as day, and then upon enhancement and analysis, I wasn't able to discern any details that would indicate to me it was an insect or anything of that nature.
Sure. Well, that's good. I definitely want to see that. Please do send it to me.
I certainly will.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll go ahead and get off, and I'll just say, que pasa, bien Dios.
All right, man. Thank you.
Excellent call, Tom. Thank you very much for calling in, and you take care. What a great question. And, if anyone out there listening may have photos or video of rods or something they think may be a rod, definitely send it to Jose, and he'll analyze it and possibly put it in your book or movie or something that you were definitely going to be working on in the future.
Well, when I do my Roswell Rods movie, which I'm going to do it, I'll get it done. There was a photograph that I submitted to Monster Quest, and it was of the Hughes Ranch Howard Hughes Ranch in Nevada. And the photographer is a forensics photographer that puts people in jail based on photography. Okay, he's the kind of guy that testifies. He's also just a regular nature photographer. So he had taken a photo at I believe it was like 6 in the morning. The sun was just coming up, and he shot it with this kind of Kodak film that was not noise. There was no noise on it. He said it was a clean. He says, "You're lucky, Jose. This shot was taken with a Kodak stock that's clean, man. What you see is what you get." Yeah. So he had pulled out this photo that he'd taken like in the 80s, actually, and he noticed what appeared to be a speck of dirt. Okay, so he scanned the photo at like an obscene amount of pixels, man, like about 5,000 or 6,000, pixels per inch. And he found that it was not a speck of dirt, and he said, "Man, I better see if that's in the negative." And sure enough, this thing was in the negative, and what it is, it's a rod object that seems to be either coming out from the mountains or going into the mountains, but it's at a slight angle. But you see the whole thing, man. It's a torso with the undulatory wavefront on both sides. And he said that object was probably, he said about 900 yards from where he was. All right, and he said he guesstimated that it was about 6 or maybe 8 feet long, judging from the references and the measurements that he knows. And he said, first of all, he said, I thought rods are nothing but insects, misfilmed insects. He says, I'm a professional photographer. I'm a forensics guy. He said, now I'm a total believer. He says, this is a real deal. It's not a bird. It's not a misfilmed insect. And he told me the shutter setting that he had and everything else, and he just snapped a photo. It was not one of these things where it was a prolonged, shot where, they leave the shutter open, which anything can blur. He said, no, I snapped it. That was it. Okay, go ahead.
It's incredible, the thought of the speed that they can achieve, too. I mean, the velocity must be in probably, what would you say, maybe Mach 2, Mach 3 minimum?
Yeah, but see, they don't fly. They swim.
Yeah,
if you look at a cuttlefish,
yeah.
if you look at a any kind of fish, man, they can swim through the density of the water extremely fast, make right angle turns, zip, they can stop, boom, it's amazing with this type of propulsion. Squids, cuttlefish, it's just amazing what can be done with that type of propulsion, and these things have mastered it inside in the air.
Right.
So they're probably flying or traveling faster than what we think.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I got to tell you one thing. I have to say one
ahead.
thing, and this is going to be in my movie.
Yeah.
The rod phenomenon, filming at high shutter setting that eliminates insects and birds, these things are just traveling so fast, I saw footage, and I'm allocating it for the movie, the Roswell Rods movie, taken in Gulf Breeze, and it's of this silver metallic object that's hovering, and people have probably seen this, real popular shot. This thing is just hovering there, and then boom, it zips out to the lower left, in a path towards the lower left, and guess what it turns into?
A rod.
It turns into a dark rod with undulatory waveframes on the side. So, and this photo, this footage was shot with a high shutter setting. It was not normal or that kind of setting. The guy that videotaped it was a high shutter, and there was this orb. It's just a metallic UFO sphere that's just hovering there, and all of a sudden, boom, it darts off so fast that it becomes a blur, even at the high shutter setting. So, maybe what rods really are spheres, orbs that are traveling so fast, they create that long, the elongated undulatory wave fin.
Yep, and that's a great point, because that goes back to the question I asked you, if you may have stumbled on something so top secret or controversial that's why they're trying to silence you.
Well, you can see that on YouTube, and have your listeners check it out, man. Go to YouTube and type in Gulf Breeze Sphere, and it's the real fast one, man. It just goes, it's hovering there, and boom, it darts off, and it turns into a rod, man. And
incredible.
For all we know, rods could be spheres, man, that are just traveling so fast, that they're creating this kind of anomaly on cameras at the high
Have you been approached by any governmental departments such as NASA or JPL or even CIA, FBI about your research?
I have been approached by the United Nations. There were some officers. There was a guy and a girl. They approached me and said, "Hey, man, have you uncovered any, that kind of thing?" Naval intelligence guy in Aztec, New Mexico. He told me point blank, "I'm here to investigate you." I've had, who else? We had naval intelligence people that came to Roswell. But, the thing with Roswell is people have to realize, Roswell's my hometown. I grew up there. I was a rock and roller. We used to see things in the sky all the time, man. We used to go out to the UFO crash site. I knew the people, man. I knew the Wilmots, people that owned the toy store since I was a kid, man. I knew Chief Hall's daughter. Went to high school with her, we partied. That's the kind of deal. Chief Hall was threatened. They said, "Hey, if you tell anybody what's going on here, you will be taken out, man." The thing is, we used to see things, and people don't realize that when you have a little tight community like Roswell, okay, there's a lot of good people there. These are not people that are full of BS, man. These are the kind of guys that are from old school. These are guys, that were from the old country, man. The guys that that worked their butts off. They were patriots, and all of a sudden this event happens that just kind of transforms everything. But believe it or not, up until I believe it was 1994, maybe before that, 1980s. the UFO thing was never talked about in Roswell by people.
Right.
Okay, you could run across a guy and, hey, how you doing? Hey, good, how you doing? They go to the same restaurant, they have the same breakfast for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you know, and they never discuss the Roswell crash. You know, it's not like they said, hey, man, we got something here, you know. They just never discuss it. And people don't realize that thing happened, man. It's a real deal. The military took all their variations and tried to, you know, brush it up under the carpet, but it was too late. You know, they made a mistake. PR came out. It's a real deal. And Roswell Rods, it's the real deal. The reason I chose the name Roswell Rods is because I tried to get rods.com, but there's a cowboy palace somewhere in Texas. His name is Rod. Okay? And the name of the company is Rods, R-O-D''S. Rod
Yes.
Cowboy Palace. He sells cowboy hats, boots, and stuff. I tried to buy it from them. They didn't want to give up the name Rods, R-O-D-S. So the next best thing was Roswell Rods, because I'm from Roswell, and I got rods flying over Roswell and Midway, so I said RoswellRods.com. So that's where that name came from, in case people are wondering. I'm not trying to cash in on the, quote, Roswell name, all right?
What about an actual genus for this species, if it did ever get documented in you know...
Doggone it. You know, I did have a genus name. It was, gosh, what was it, man? Oh, it was called, okay, we had rods, and then it says calcium, piscus. Okay, piscus. Hold on. Cellulum piscus, I believe. Well, something like that. It's Latin for skyfish.
Yes.
We did have that, and I did that. I came up with it, man. I said, okay, rod, Cellulum piscus, or piscus cellulum. It meant skyfish in Latin, so that would be the scientific name.
I think you should incorporate your name into it, actually.
I know. I was just going to say, people say, you ought to call it ESCAMILLA for skyfish. And I go, well, I know, but Cellulum piscus sounds better. You know, it's just one of those things.
Let me ask you,
Cellulum piscus. Okay.
Does the UFO community, because these could be considered organic UFOs, are they supportive of you, or, you know, what's the reaction within behind the scenes that nobody knows about?
Oh, man, you know, I've had some of my early researchers, you know, that were strong with me at first. When they started buying into this insect thing, they just all, one by one, abandoned me. They went by the wayside, okay?
Right.
But the only person that stuck with me is Kenneth Schwartz out of Denver, Colorado. He stuck with me. He knows what's up, you know. And he's a scientist. He's a physicist, biological type of guy. He stuck with me. And there was also another scientist from Boulder that when we did the Rods TV special with Fox, he had to be filmed in shadow. Because here's another one, you know, here's what occurs. Scientists that go into the field of, they call it fringe science, like UFOs and rods and everything else, they will be scorned and ridiculed by their peers. Okay? This one scientist from Boulder, I mean, he's doing miraculous stuff. He's working with major scientific stuff, data. He started filming these things and applied a scientific methodology to it. He says, you know, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. They're insects, I'll prove they're insects, you know. And he's the kind of scientific mind that could have done that. He'd have said, you know, he'd have figured out what it is. But he got insects, using my protocols, you know, sky fishing protocol. He got insects, they were insects. He got birds, they were birds. He got rods, they were rods. Okay, so he contacted me, and he even went as far as appearing with me on the TV show that Fox did. And I believe you can see that on YouTube now. It's called Alien Encounters. And he says it. He says, you know, once you say UFO, or in this case rods, he says, us scientists will lose our grants. We will lose our careers because we delve into this area. Universities that allow their scientists to study this will lose their grants. And guess who gives them the grants? The government.
That's right.
So it's like, this is why the scientific neighborhood avoids the subject of UFOs, rods, and any other paranormal phenomena, you know? And if you don't buy into the game that has to be played, and try to debunk the stuff and just say, well, I don't know, they're probably mass hysteria or whatever it is, then you could lose your career, you know?
That's right. That's a very good point.
So, you know, it's kind of John Mack, you know, God bless him, God rest his soul. He was a guy that was interviewing abductees, man. He got run over by a car in Europe, okay? There was never an apprehension of the hit-and-run driver, mysterious death, you know, but they chalk it up, oh, he just got run over. Yeah, how many UFO guys get run over?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, people just got to wake up what's going on. It's right there in front of
you.
you.
That's the thing, too. You're absolutely right. You know, keep an open mind and look beyond the quick fix, because, you know, if something gets shot down that fast or attempted to be shot down that quickly, then there's obviously a reason behind that, you know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if that was the case, then all other fields of the paranormal, like ghost research, UFO, and Bigfoot, and that kind of thing, if we go by what other people say automatically, none of that would even exist, you know.
Yeah, it's like my slogan. It says, somewhere in the back of your mind, you've always known it was true, you know.
That's right.
It's just, are you going to fess up to it, that you believe it? That's the only thing.
No.
You know, people get embarrassed. They say, oh, man, I don't want to I saw a UFO, but I don't want to tell anybody because my family would think I'm nuts. And I go, well, why do they think you're nuts? Where did that originate?
Yeah.
It originated by our government and the military. You know, that's where it started. The ridicule of people and even killing people started with the government, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to realize that there are things among us that they don't want you to know about, because if they do, if you ever find out that that's the truth, then their whole story is just going to go down, man. Then you're going to realize you've been lied to. So that's where it is, you know.
Well, I kind of had a thought, and this may or may not have any relations to the Rod phenomenon at all, but did you ever see that movie Abyss?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there any correlation or connection possibly to Rod's research? Because that specific entity was very fluidic and moved in various abilities underwater. I know it never came out of the water, but
yeah.
As you know, everything in Hollywood is taken from something, so I'm just wondering.
Well, yeah, it had the undulatory wave fin, much like a cuttlefish and a squid. That's what the unique thing about it was. It was translucent, almost gelatinous, and it could traverse all areas. Of course, it didn't see it. You know, you didn't see it fly out into the sky.
That's right.
But yeah, definitely, there's some illumination towards these creatures, man. I'll tell you a real cool one that I was really blown away, man. Somebody at DreamWorks. What's that movie? Ice Age. Remember the Ice Age?
Yes.
Okay, the original one. And I want your listeners out there to go there. Check out the Ice Age DVD, the first one. When I guess it's that funny-looking creature, man. Not the woolly mammoth, but the one, you know, the crazy guy.
Yes.
He's walking around and he sees a fish, a piranha-looking creature in the ice, embedded in ice. Then he sees a thing that looks like a shark. And guess what? The next one he sees is a rod.
That's right. I remember that.
It's great. There's a rod with the undulatory wave fins and the eyes and he's smiling, you know. But there's a rod. They put a rod in Ice Age. So I was really, you know. Oh, another bit of trivia. The TV series Roswell. Remember that show?
Yes.
Roswell. Okay.
I do.
The producers were into rods, and they contacted me. I was living in Colorado at that time. They said, Jose, we're going to set up a rod exhibit in the museum, in the Roswell Museum, the fake Roswell Museum, as the two stars are talking about, you know, whatever's happening. So they did. I sent them the cave footage and, you know, rod stuff. So they had an actual rod exhibit in the movie Roswell. So for your listeners, if you want to go out there, try to find it. I'd like to find which DVD it was, you know, with this thing, which episode, because I'm too lazy to look for it. But it's there, you know. So it was really cool.
Well, let me ask you this. A good friend of mine and a guest, and he knows a lot of people here on Blog Talk Radio as well, Dennis Crenshaw, researches Hollow Earth. Is there a possibility that they may originate from Hollow Earth as well?
I am a total advocate of the Hollow Earth theory.
Yes.
Okay? I wrote a screenplay back in the early 80s called The Book of Zon, and it was about this whole cultural thing in the Hollow Earth. And guess what? I had written a thing about these things called vipers, which were protecting the castle inside, or the city of Zon. These things were like, we call them vipers in the screenplay at that time. All they did is flew around the city of Zon, protecting it from these reptoids that were coming out of the waters, trying to knock down the walls to get into the city of Zon, where the knowledge of the universe is being held. Well, the co-writer that I had later on, the second and third trilogy part of the screenplay, he said, Jose, you don't realize the vipers were rods, man. Okay?
Yeah.
They were flying snakes.
Yeah.
Okay? And that movie came to me in dreams, and this was in 82, way before I found the rods in 95. 94, I mean. So
yeah.
It was just like a synchronistic thing that's kind of bizarre, I don't tell this story. You're the first time I've mentioned that, but yeah, I think there may be something connection to it, because the Cave of the Swallows is a huge cavern, and it goes into a labyrinth. There were some you know what spelunkers are? These are the guys that do cave explorations.
Yes, yes.
When we had a Japanese crew there, this was in the year 2000. In 2000, we're at the Cave of the Swallows, and the director and some of the other people were being brought down into the cave. There were some Mexico spelunkers that were there, and they said, look, there is a cave system that goes in this one area, and it goes so far in, it goes about 8 miles in. He says there's only crawl space type, area, which I'm totally claustrophobic. I would just not enjoy getting into a space where it's just like, you're kind of tight, but you get through. And they came upon, and this is amazing, they came upon an area where they come out of this cave opening, and there's a ledge, okay? And it's pitch black, okay? They had these powerful neon-type lights, or halogen lights, that, could illuminate for hundreds of feet. Well, they illuminated the whole side, and they looked at the ledge, and the ledge kind of curved a little, but it took forever to really curve around, and they just shined the light, and it just went into darkness, the ledge, on either side. Then they shined the light straight on, and it was just this huge abyss, okay? And there was some kind of a breeze, they said, sort of like a type of steady, wind sound. They shined the halogen lights up to the ceiling. There was no ceiling. They shined down. There was no ground. They shined across. They ended. They could not see any wall on the other side. So, in other words, what they came upon was a huge, huge hole, okay? A huge sector of Earth that's just bottomless top, there's no top to it, and it's pitch black. And they all of a sudden said they got an urge, or they got a feeling that if they stayed there any longer, something terrible was going to happen to them. Okay, so they got the heck out of there, man. So this could have been a major abyss inside the Hollow Earth area that led down straight somewhere. Right. They didn't say they heard voices. They didn't say they heard anything, but this just is, this steady type of stream of air. But they said they got, chills on their spine and everything, man. They said, man, we had to get the heck out of it. It was just scary.
I would never do that.
I would never either. I mean, just knowing that you're in an area where an earthquake happens and your body's barely getting through, and then you're caught. It's just a scary thing for me. But they said they felt a presence there.
Well, let me ask you: has anybody ever reported being bitten by one of these, or scratched, or no?
No, but I've had a policeman that he was at he was an altercation down in downtown L.A., he's an LAPD cop. He emailed me. He says, hey, has anyone ever been struck by one of these, and what does it feel like? Yes. Okay, we've had reports. I think I've got about 8 reports over the years where people saw the rod come at them and strike them, and they said it was like an electrical charge. You know how when you hit your funny bone on your elbow?
Yeah.
Or sometimes, have you ever been sitting down and for no reason you just, boom, you get a jolt? Mm-hmm. Like an electrical jolt, okay? This LAPD policeman asked me the question, what does it feel like? And I said, okay, what happened to you? And he says, all right, here's his story. And I'm almost verbatim, but not. He said that he was at a gang shooting. They were having a shootout with gangs. And he felt a sharp jolt, right? And he's wearing a vest, okay?
Yes.
But he thought he got shot through the vest because suddenly he saw a flash, looked like a gun flash, and boom, something hit him and it knocked him down, okay? Wow. But he said, I mean, he'd never been hit by a bullet before,
yeah.
But he said it felt like an electrical jolt, okay? Knocked him down, didn't knock him unconscious. He thought it was shot, okay? That's all he could think. He said, a bullet came through the side of my vest where I'm vulnerable, right? Well, he, the shooting went down and everything was over, and he went to the ambulance, the paramedic, and they looked at his side, and he had kind of a red welt, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He took the shirt off, he had his vest, and then they took his vest off, he had a red welt, and then the paramedics said, well, we don't know what hit you, but we're going to give you a thing. When they looked again, the welt was gone. Okay, it just went away. But he described it as an electrical shock. It was like as if he'd gotten two bare wires, 110 electricity, and held them, and boom, he got jolted. That's what he felt. So we've had 8 other witnesses that have written to me. I believe it's 8 because I remember the count. And I sent him the emails that I got, and they all reported feeling like they got a jolt, like your funny bone, but a jolt, And he said that's the sensation he felt. He thinks he got hit by a rod.
I wonder if these people had extenuating heart conditions, and in almost a guardian angel sort of way, these rods sacrificed themselves to save these people.
Well, everything is up for conjecture, okay? I'm a film guy. What I do is I present you visually what is there. I can't explain it. I tried for many years to come up with a plausible scenario that would explain rods, but I just can't do it. I'm not a scientist, number one. And I went to scientists. Believe me, you won't imagine, Jason, how many people. We went to the Museum of Natural History. We went to zoologists, biologists, marine zoologists. We went to everyone, showed them the pictures, the videos, and everything else. They were blown away, but they always tell me the same thing. Until we get a specimen, we really can't identify what's there, all right?
Right.
And how do you catch something that's so fast,
That's right.
I mean...
That's a very good point. Well, here's a question that sort of has a conspiracy theory behind it, but I'd like to ask, do you feel that that may be a reason why there's a chemtrail overload of aerosol spraying in the atmosphere to sort of...
Yes. Yes. You know why? Because the Army came out years ago. I remember reading a direct response from the Air Force. They said, yeah, we're spraying chemicals up there to try to kill bacteria that exist in the upper atmospheres. All right? They admitted it. So if there's bacteria, that means there's organisms up there. All right? And there's been rains of gelatinous material falling in New Jersey and different countries and different states, and it's harmful for humans, but maybe they found out we can kill these things that are up there by, blasting the skies with aluminum, barium, and other toxic things that are harmless to humans. But what do they care? They don't care. As long as they can get rid of these entities or whatever the things that they are. Maybe they're alien entities that exist up there. I mean, I don't know. I'm just a visual guy, but I have done my best, Jason, over the last 15 years to try to come to at least some kind of a scenario or a plausible answer to what the rods phenomenon is. And you know what? I've hit 0. Don't know what they are. I don't know if they're happy or mad. I don't know if they're good for us or bad for us. I don't know if they would be harmful. I mean, all I know is that I've never experienced. I've had sightings where a rod flew right next to me and my partner Saskia. We were walking out of a restaurant over in Santa Monica, Culver City, and that was the first time she ever saw a rod. This thing was flying through the air, coming through the air like a porpoise would swim, okay, if you can imagine that. And it was swimming so fast, I mean, we were walking out, boom, it just zipped to right next to her. She was to my right, and I saw it, and she saw it, and we looked at each other, and I said, did you see that? And she goes, yeah. I mean, she was blown away, but at the same time elated that she saw her first rod. It was a brownish-looking thing, and it was about a 2-footer, 3-footer maybe, you know.
Wow.
But until you experience it, there's nothing like seeing one with a naked eye, man. And when you do, it'll change your perspective on what's among us. I mean, you know, these ain't no insects, man.
That's the thing. You know, one of the things that really needs to be brought to attention too is the fact that, you know, you keep saying you're a film guy, but what you're doing is you're providing a platform for discussion, and that's the number one thing. You know.
That's it. That's all I can do.
Yeah, and it's so important to have that platform for discussion because, as you know, things are so bottled and controlled that you get the same garbage every day served to you. You know, so having variety and something to think beyond the box is an amazing thing, and I think you're doing a great service with that.
Well, thank you, and that's what I decided to do when I saw the Peter Jennings ABC special on UFOs. When it came out, I said, man, finally ABC is doing the right thing, man. And they did. The first hour was fantastic, man. They presented our case for the UFOs, right? The second hour, they bring all the skeptics and debunkers. Yeah. And they eliminated all of the evidence from the first hour. And I go, well, that was a freaking waste because now people are going to say, wow, that was a fantastic UFO, but it turned out to be the planet Venus.
Yes.
You know, and then Peter Jennings goes, could UFOs be real? Now, come on, guys. This is 2010. They're going to land next year. You know, it's
if
like,
they haven't
okay.
already.
Yeah, if they haven't, well, no, I know they've been here. I mean, we all know that. The guys on the inside track, we already know what's up. It's just that JQ Public has been so dumbed down, literally. I mean, look what Monster Quest did. You know, it turned a phenomenon that's real into an insect. And people just don't realize how they got hoodwinked, man. Here's another one, too. The object that flew over Albany, New York in 2002. You know, it was a rod. It flew right through the cloud and everything else. The FBI confiscated the footage. They tried to get the poor cameraman that was just out there doing a weather backdrop. You know how they do the weather report and you get a live feed or a backdrop for the weather? That's all this poor guy was doing, man. He was out there filming a jet flying over, flying away when this rod flies through. And he didn't catch it when he filmed it. It was his editor, which I'm a film editor. It was his editor that caught it and said, hey, what's this? It looked like a cruise missile. All right, so he brought his news director and the other guy, and they said, man, that is heavy, man. That thing is so fast. And what's it doing in our airspace over Albany, New York airport, you know? Which, come on, 9/11, it just happened, so, this was a major story. Well, the FBI comes in and confiscates the master tape. They take this poor camera guy in and question him. They tried to make him confess that he faked it. That's how serious it was, okay? They took the footage to Fort Hood, Texas, of all places, for study. We've heard nothing else from that anymore. Now, if it was an insect, if it was that easy to explain, they would have said, oh, it's just an insect close to the lens of the camera. They didn't even bring that up because they knew what they'd captured was a rod, and it was huge. So, people just need to wake up, man. Anyway.
I agree completely, and I want to tell you, this hour and a half has been extremely amazing to speak to you. And if you can please give out your website one more time, and you mentioned a new movie and other stuff that you got in the works. Can you also give release dates?
Yeah, real quick. I just redid UFO, The Greatest Story Ever Denied. I did the remake, and I'm still finishing it. It won't be finished until probably next month. but I'm planning to do a movie premiere at Grauman's Chinese Theater. I'm landing UFOs in Hollywood. People just pay attention, man. It's all real. My website is TBLN Films. That's Tom, Bob, Larry, Nancy, films.com. Also RoswellRods.com, theufomovie.com. My email is jose@tbln.com. And Jason, thank you so much for having me on. When you contacted me, I said, heck yeah, let's do it. I'm moving right now, by the way.
Yeah, I really appreciate the fact that, with the chaos of moving and short notice that you came on. It's an absolute honor, sir. And I would love to have you
I wanted
back.
to be on your show. It's an honor for me, and I wanted to speak my piece about the rods, man. And you know what, Jason, thank you so much for giving me a voice.
My pleasure. And I anytime you want to come back, let me know. I will set it up, even if it's like, at death's door knocking. I'll put you on for sure, my friend.
You got it.
You have yourself a great night, and we'll talk soon.
Hey, you too, Jason. Thank you so much, and God bless you, brother.
You too. God bless. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. What an incredible show with an incredible guest. That was Jose Escamilla. And, again, he's a Rod SKYFISH researcher, filmmaker. And check out his stuff because it's definitely worth the discussion. And don't be so quick to point the finger and judge on things that are not known or unknown. As you know, the world of the paranormal, nobody's a true expert. Everybody has their own theories and thoughts. And that's the thing. As long as we keep discussing and keep researching, and imagining, the possibilities and the truth are infinite and unknown and endless. So I hope you can join me tomorrow night. I have a show that's coming up with a ufologist, or a UFO group, I should say, out of Alberta, Canada. And it's going to be an interesting program. That's at the regular time of 10 p.m. Right here on Blog Talk